So as you can see, I have a new bandsaw, and I'm going to explain what happened to the old one and why I chose to get another horizontal bandsaw. Welcome to another episode. As you've probably seen in some of my previous videos, I had a Harbor Freight 4x6 bandsaw. I've had this for a number of years, maybe up to 10 years, I'm not sure. And using a start blade, it worked really well, until recently. Recently it started to make some really bad noises, and I'll show you what happened with the next video. The audio with the automatic gain control is not going to make it really come across very well, but in person the noise was quite dramatic, and I had to start wearing ear protection because it had gotten so bad. So let me show you the issue that I was running into with the machine. Here's my Harbor Freight bandsaw that started to get really noisy recently. I'll turn it on and you can hear what I mean. So the sound, it seems like it's coming from somewhere in here. And so what I want to do is isolate it. And so I'm going to first start by taking the belt off. And then I'm going to hold this away from the guard and then turn the saw on. So you can tell that the motor is really quiet, which means this is not the problem. Now if I turn, oh wow. If I turn this, it feels really crunchy, which means it's probably the bearings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up, have a look inside, and then I may very well replace the bearings that are both in here and I think down there as well. I've unplugged the machine from the wall so that there's no chance this will start running while I'm in here. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is clean out the oil from there. So I'm going to get some pig mat. I did some research and found out that once this pulley is off, I can push this out and I don't have to take the gear off the other side. So one thing I did, I was trying to pound this out and that was not working very well. So I got this gear puller, and I'm going to see if this will allow me to get it off. It should. There we go. Whew. I lost the audio for this section, but at this point I have the worm gear isolated, and as I'm turning the shaft I can feel it's really crunchy, which tells me that these two bearings down there are the ones that are bad. It should come out the top, and I tried many things to try to get it out the top and I just couldn't get it out. So at this point I was getting pretty frustrated because I just couldn't get the bearings out, and I couldn't find anything else that would keep it in place. I checked on the Facebook YouTube machinist group and asked there, and I did get some suggestions. Most of the suggestions were to use heat. I didn't have a torch, so that meant I needed to go out and get a torch. There were some other suggestions about cutting the bearings and trying to get them off that way. And I thought about it quite a bit and finally decided that maybe I should just use this as an excuse to get a better bandsaw. I had been running into the limitations of this bandsaw. It's a 4x6 inch bandsaw. So based on my understanding, that means it should be able to cut 6 inch wide, 1 inch thick material. I have some 5 inch wide, 1 or 1.5 inch material that I was cutting and discovered that I couldn't cut it in one pass for whatever reason. So I was already running into the limitations of the machine, and there are some cases where I was thinking about cutting even wider material like 6 or 7 inches or even 8 inches wide. So I started to research other saws and decided it was either a larger bandsaw or that I would use a cold cutting saw or a circular saw, a chop saw. I looked into the chop saws, and there were some good options, but there were things that I didn't like about that option. One is that they seem to be really noisy. Another thing that I didn't like is that it seems like you need to have separate blades for aluminum and steel. I don't cut steel that often, but I wasn't sure I wanted to change blades. So in the end, I decided to go with the larger bandsaw, and the one I decided to go with is the Grizzly G0561, which is a 7x12-inch bandsaw. Also 1 horsepower like the Harbor Freight that I had, the smaller one, which means that I can just plug it into a wall outlet, 110 outlet, and it'll work just fine. So I ordered that and had it shipped to my house with a tailgate or tail lift, whatever they call it. And the delivery guy brought it right into my garage, and so the next thing I'm going to do is unpack that, get that set up, and into my workshop. This thing weighs about 350 pounds, and the driver used a pallet jack to bring it up from the road, up our driveway, which isn't too steep, but it's not exactly shallow, directly into our garage. You can see it's on a pallet. So the first thing I have to do is get the cardboard off enough so that I can see the bandsaw, and then I need to take the frame off enough so that I can pull the plastic off, get to the manual, and figure out how I'm going to get this assembled and off of the pallet so that I can get it into my workshop. I'm actually going to do something that maybe I should do more often, which is to look at the manual to see how best to assemble this. It's on a pallet, so I'm going to need to get it up off the pallet, and this weighs about 350 pounds. I do have an engine hoist, so that's probably going to be how I get this off the pallet. And then this box, which was packed in over here, contains various parts, including the 2 wheels that go on the rear. So I'll have to take a look at the manual, and then I'll be back to try to figure out how to assemble this and get it into my workshop, which is back there, up 3 flights of stairs. Fortunately, what I'm probably going to do is, once I get it on wheels, take it outside, and then there's a path around the house that has a ramp, and then I can get it into my workshop, which is right back there through those doors. Off camera, I got this off the pallet, and one of the things I didn't realize right away, I was trying to use my engine hoist to pick up one of the ends, that one there, so I could get the wheels on. One of the things I didn't realize is that in the 4 corners on the inside, there were some lag bolts that were holding it onto the pallet. So I had to take those lag bolts out first. Once I did that, I could fairly easily pull this up with the pallet jack, put the wheels on, and then I was able to pull this end up and put these pads on. Once I did that, I could lift this end and pull it off most of the way off the cart. When I got everything except for the back wheels off of the, sorry, not the cart, off of the pallet, then what I did is I used the pallet jack to lift this up just barely enough, and then pull it forward and then drop it down so that it didn't come crashing off the end of the pallet. And so now I also turn this around, which allows me to get to the motor that needs to be mounted up there. So now I can start to mount the motor. So there are 2 more bolts that need to go in there, and they have a washer on them. I can take the coolant container and put it under there, and this should be all set for me to wheel up to the workshop. So I have these rolling pads. I'm not quite sure what they're called. They're moving pads, basically some swivel wheels with the center pad. So the idea is I'm going to see if I can put this pad in the middle of this and if it's stable enough. And if it is, then this will be easier for me to move up into the workshop because I don't have to hold the weight of the front. I just need to pull. So let me give that a try. That should make it a lot easier to move around. Well, these didn't work very well when rolling over the joints in the concrete. I finished setting the bandsaw up. The other steps were pretty straightforward. So I'm going to take a test cut with some aluminum, and I'm going to try something that I saw A-Bomb do, which is to flip this over 180 degrees and then do another cut after I finish the first. So I'm going to turn it on. Okay, I didn't have enough engagements, so I'm going to pull this up and then unclamp this and move this in just a little bit more and try cutting a more substantial piece. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by lowering this down so it's close. Okay, and then I'm going to start again. I'm noticing that this blade, I'm going to have to check to see what blade came with it, but it's a pretty coarse blade, so I do have another blade and I may change it out before I do much cutting. So let's have a look to see how this does. So I'm getting quite a bit of chatter. Again, I suspect it's because the teeth on this are too coarse. So I'm going to check to see what came with the machine, and then I may just change it out. I changed the blade out. This had a 6 teeth per inch blade in it, and I changed it to a Lennox 12 teeth per inch blade. And so hopefully that should cut a lot easier. It helps to plug it in. It's still chattering a little bit, but yeah, let's see what's going on. I changed the belt speed so that it's on the second to lowest speed, and let's give that a try. Looks good, it's cutting. This is the piece that came out of it. It's pretty thin, but this width here is thicker than this width here. So it's not cutting straight at the moment, but it's not too bad for the first try without adjusting it at all. So right now this is good enough so that I can start using it, because I have to clean up the ends anyway. and then when I have a little bit of free time, probably next weekend, I'll adjust it to try to get it so that it does an even better cut. The other question is how square it is. So looking at this, it's actually really close to being square. So what that tells me is that I have it it's pretty well adjusted. I haven't changed it, as I mentioned, this way. So I just need to change the angle of these two blocks a little bit, just loosen the screws, put a square in here, and then square them up, and then it should do a really great job. So I'm back in business. I've cut several parts from this now, so I've got a better idea of how this bandsaw is different from the Harbor Freight. And there's one thing that really sticks out that I like, which is, okay, so right now the valve is in the position where it can move up and down. And if I move it to the closed position, it'll stay in place. So if I pick this up so that it's just above the part, as you can see there, I can slip the ruler underneath. What I can do, which was kind of hard to do before because the saw itself would keep dropping down, is I can now put this in here and I can very easily measure the material to be the length that I want to cut. And that is so much easier to do than what I was doing before. So that's a feature that I really love. So I've had this bandsaw working for about a week now. I don't have a lot of experience on it, but it's nice to have something with a much larger capacity. The other thing that this can do, which I haven't hooked up yet, is to use flood coolant to help with the cutting of the material and keeping the material and the saw clean and cool. That's something, as I say, I'll look into. I've been doing dry cutting of aluminum for a long time, so I don't absolutely need it, but I'm going to start looking into it and see if that makes a difference and figure out what coolant I should use. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please give me a thumbs up, comment below, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.